Decision Diaries with Lynn and Jami.
Welcome to Decision Diaries. On today's episode, we are going to talk about deciding to go to marriage counseling, couples therapy, whatever you may call it. Jami knows all the names for it or what they call it in California.
No,
we call it good old marriage therapy in Florida.
Well, it's not just seriously, Florida. You wanted to call it marriage therapy or marriage counseling. And I'm like, well, not everybody is married. And so I was the one that said we needed to include the word couples therapy.
Okay.
Which is
couples therapy. And I now that I know where you're going with that, yes, I agree. Couples therapy. You don't necessarily have to be married.
Thank you.
But I will come from the perspective of we were married and we needed therapy.
We as Bruce over here, and yes, we needed therapy that day.
Well, that's usually how therapy works. It's usually you bring your partner in because you think they're the one that needs it, and then that therapist is just going to confirm it for you, right?
Yeah. So let me start. No, let me start it off. Let me start off because this one is really funny. But I will say that when we came back from our honeymoon for our first year of marriage, was very hard.
Yes,
I mentioned in a previous episode that we lived together. And when we lived together, we were copacetic. We did have one major fight that could have ended it all and we wouldn't be here today. But overall, it was, love, happiness, joy, and lots of good
sunshine
good
and rainbows.
Sunshine and rainbows. It was all good time. We came back from our honeymoon and something had changed. And so we were not getting along. At one point, I showed up at my father's house. We were having a big old fight. And I went back to my parents' house. My dad answered the door. I don't know where my mom was. My dad answered the door. And I said to my dad, how have you guys made it past 25 years? And he said, you want to know how? We didn't go to our parents' house.
Oh, that was good advice.
Bam. And my dad's like, you're not staying here. Your marriage problems are not solved here. And then he turned around and said, but you are within a year. So if you want an annulment, just let me know.
Wow.
So, wise advice from dad. And on that day, I was not allowed to spend the night at my parents' house in my dramatic fashion to be away from my husband. I did have to go home. So we did have to go home and talk about it. But what ultimately resolved our first year of marriage was the movie, The Story of Us, with Michelle Pfeiffer and Bruce Willis. And we went to that movie barely even holding hands, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
We were barely even holding hands. We were going to a movie just so we honestly probably didn't have to talk to each other. And we went into Story of Us. And do you remember she had that friend and her friend was like, you can't get divorced. You are Fred and Ethel, or you're our
Fred and Ethel.
No, is it Fred and Ethel?
It doesn't matter. Anyway, because I remember you quoting that movie and saying that anytime you thought you were going to watch it.
So we were in that movie and now I will buy that movie for everybody getting married. It's The Story of Us, Michelle Pfeiffer and Bruce Willis. And we were in the movie and I was crying in the movie because we were literally watching ourselves up on the screen. And so then we left the movie holding hands. And then we promised ourselves that every time we had a fight, we would force ourselves to watch this movie.
Did you hold true to that?
Worked for us. I remember I bought the movie at like a Blockbuster or something. We still have it.
We still have it. And we also, I think, loaded it.
Yeah. It's on our like Netflix or whatever.
Okay. So I'm bringing you back in. You ended up in therapy. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well, so let me take you to what happens later. So we get through what I'd like to say, working out the yin and yang and the flow of our lives. I think a part of the things that changed is that the store is now gone and I've got a job where I am traveling a lot because I'm in software sales and my territory is the West Coast. So I am traveling a lot and I'm mainly with men, the technology industry. I'm mainly with men at all of these conferences and stuff like that. So, I'm doing that and we're making good money. I've paid off, or I'm in the process of paying off the remaining of the store loan. What ended us up in marriage counseling is the dynamic changed again when we had children. And I do think that in a marriage, when you have very young children, is probably the most vulnerable time in a marriage, because there's a lot going on inside each other's heads. You know, I don't know. I mean, I will tell you what was going on in my head. I completely gave up my career and decided to be a stay-at-home mom, but also in that process, our income was reduced by 50%.
Yeah.
So that's already going to put pressure on top of pressure.
Mhm.
And
I lost my job 2 days before our first son was born.
Yeah. He lost his job 2 days before our child was born. And I looked at him, and, you know, I was raised by a stay-at-home mom, and I looked at him and I said, I'm still putting my notice in after my maternity leave. So get a moving.
Wow. Had you guys had that conversation before you got married that you were going to be a stay-at-home mom?
Yes. We
Yes.
had the conversation the first day we met.
First day we met. Yeah.
All
I
right.
said I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and you know, I'll earn as much as I can, but I'm, you know, we bought a house that didn't require both of our incomes because we knew we were going to drop to one income. But it's one thing to talk about it, and it's one thing to be in it. And so I think
from two incomes to now looking at maybe zero incomes, really. But so what ultimately made you pick up the phone? How'd you find the therapist? You know, how did that conversation go?
So I think the boys were 4 and 2, or maybe 3 and 1. They were very young, and the finances were really getting bad. I don't know, Jamie, if you knew how bad our finances were, but, you know, we were like doing non-meat days, and we were almost back to those move-in years where we were really poor. But this time, you know, we had 2 little humans with us. I was staying at home. I was with other stay-at-home moms that were in better financial situations than I was. So I think a part of me was a little just like jealous. And then also I guess I'm feeling a little bit guilt. So we're just not communicating really well. So how I found the counselor was, we didn't have a lot of money. So there's this prorated family counseling center. And I called them up and I said, you know, this is how much income I have. So how much are these sessions going to cost? And they said, well, for you, $25. And I thought, this is worth $25. So I made an appointment.
The story alone is worth $25.
The story alone is worth millions of dollars.
Right.
It should be a movie. So I made the appointment for my our $25 session. I don't even know what their qualifications were, Jamie. I mean, I don't think this person had like multiple degrees in family counseling.
That doesn't even matter. First of all, I want to know, had either of you ever been to therapy before?
I had most of my life.
Never me. I come from a very family that didn't talk about their feelings. So this was different.
So what did you think when Lynn comes to you and says, hey, we're going to go to a therapist? Like, what did you say?
Why the hell are we going to a therapist?
Why the hell? But did you say no? Like, did you say,
I didn't want to go? Honest to God, I did not want to go. I was at work, and I had my coworker sit in the same, we had a little cube farm, and I said, hey, this is what's going on. He kind of says, divorce is hard, bro. You might want to go. And I'm like, all right. He goes, just talk about your feelings, man. You'll be all right. And I said, okay, you know, you'll be all right. All right.
So I want to hear about that. So I don't need to hear about the therapist qualifications. Nobody cares. Move on.
Well, I just want you to let you know that this person, I don't know if they really knew what they were doing. So we go the first day. You know, I've made the appointment. So obviously they know that I'm the one sort of driving the conversation. And
anybody who knows you knows you're the one driving the conversation.
So Bruce, you're going to pause. I'm going to hold my hand up, and I will let you know when I'm done. And then you can say your side.
It's going to be hard not to jump in here.
Look, I've got the talking baton. Okay. I will hand you the talking baton when I am done. So we go to this counselor, And the counselor knows I've set the appointment. So her first question to me is, why are you here? Lynn, you set the appointment. So we're going to hear from Lynn first. So Lynn is Lynn, and I let all of my toxicity of how I was feeling out of my mouth. All of it. Hey, I got the talking baton. You be quiet. So I did. I let it all out. And I was complaining about financing. I was saying he didn't help around the house, and that I'm under all this pressure, and I'm a mom, and I'm overwhelmed, and I don't get any help, and nobody appreciates me, right? I mean, I think that was the underlying theme. So then she says to me after I'm done, which, by the way, took the full session.
45 minutes later.
45 minutes later, after I am done, I think what was amazing about what she did and what she said was she said, look over at your husband. And when I looked over at Bruce, he looked like somebody had punched him in the stomach, shot him. He was kind of like slumping in his seat. And at that moment, I really saw him, and I really saw how mean I was. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And I'm feeling like when we walk out, I really want to apologize, and I really feel this way. Of course, I'm feeling this way until we walk out, and he turns to me and he goes, now she knows you're a bitch. So why don't you tell your side? You get the talking baton.
Yes.
The actual quote was, I walked out and I said, it looks like she knows you're a bitch, and round one goes to Bruce. And she looked at me. She goes, did you just make this a competition? I said, fuck yeah, I did.
So did you get to even, I mean, seriously, did you get to talk or say anything in that first
I didn't
session?
say a word, Jamie, not one word.
It does not surprise me.
It was, Lynn had 45 minutes to get off what she just got off on whatever was on bothering her that I'd heard 1,000 times.
He had heard 1,000 times. Wait for it. I
am. So it was like, okay, yeah, I know the story, but having to watch someone else hear the story about how much of a jerk or less of a husband I was, less provider I was, it sucked. It did suck. I'm not gonna lie to you, but
yeah, but so
I was able to change gears as soon as we walked out and I saw the sunshine outside. I was able to change gears, and I was like, yeah, round one goes to me.
And we walked out, and he said that right when, as I mentioned, in my head, if he wouldn't have said anything to me, I think that I would have apologized. And I think that I don't even know if we would have gone to counseling a second time, because I think that I had come to that realization, but he didn't know what my little air bubble was above my head. So now he says, she knows you're a bitch and it's a competition. And I'm like, hell yeah. And I booked the next one within the week, right?
I got 2 weeks later, a week later.
It was like a week later. Like I got the earliest second appointment because I was like, it is on, motherfucker, right? and we're going home, and we're not really even, I mean, we're moving about our house and we're with the kids, but the kids like have no idea what's going on with us.
We
like,
laughed a little bit about it though. I mean,
yeah, there was a very dangerous.
It was thin ice, but we kind of chuckled about it. And
yeah,
she's just like, yeah, well, so, wait till she finds out about you.
Wait till round two. So we go back round two. This is really important. We go back round two, and she immediately turns to me and says, not a word. And I'm like, oh yeah, not a word, because I'm walking in like an angel with a halo, because now I want to win round two. I
want to win the therapy competition.
I'm going to win the therapy competition. And so she starts off with this question, and this is when it gets interesting, is she says to Bruce.
No, she started with you first.
Well, she told me, anyways, that part's not important. She says to Bruce, tell me what you heard your wife say. And he says,
blah, blah, motherfucking blah.
And that woman stood up, and she was like, you are going to get divorced.
Wow.
She was so like fired up. Like she did not expect that of him. And when he said blah, 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 I've never seen a counselor so angry. She was just like, and then I said, there it is.
That's exactly what happened.
Round 2 goes to Lynn.
Jamie, and I cannot tell you the look on the lady's face. Oh my God. I looked over at Lynn, I was like, hell yeah, I got round 2. I'm like, God.
I was
so
like,
bad.
winner, chicken dinner. Now she knows you're an asshole. So we got bitch and asshole. And then I said, how quickly can you take another appointment? Because we've got one more to go. We've got one more to go. We got a tiebreaker.
Lynn goes, that's what I'm talking about. That's my husband. And that lady goes, oh.
Yeah. She was not.
She lit up like a Christmas tree.
She did. She lit up. So she extracted a few things out. She told him a few things. Whether he was listening or not, nobody knew. All he knew was he lost round 2. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and schedule round 3. So we go into round 3. He's on his good behavior. I'm on my good behavior. We need this woman to point to one of us and say,
things going to penalty kick,
and say, you are the problem, right? We're waiting for her to say, you are the problem and you're the one that needs to fix yourself. And it's not me or whatever. But she doesn't do that at all. This clever woman, right? This clever woman instead gives us an analogy that to this day I live by, that really helped me picture what a marriage is really like. And what she said is you are both in the same canoe and water is coming into the canoe and you have your 2 children. Lynn, you are holding both kids in your arms. And you have a bucket, and your bucket is really large because I'm in technology. So my income potential is really pretty high. Like, I mean, I've got this humongous bucket. Your husband doesn't have the kids in his arms and he has a shot glass and he's trying to bail the water out and he is trying. And then Lynn, in addition to holding your 2 children, you're holding a bullhorn. You're just screaming at him to get the water out of the boat. So what's going to happen? Everybody's going to die. Everybody's going to die because there's no way that him with the shot glass, no matter how hard he tries, is going to bail out that boat. She said, hand a child to your husband. Hand a child to your husband, which is very hard for a stay-at-home mom sometimes to hand the children over to her husband because they don't do it the same way or whatever. Or they might not even change the diaper and they might not put the diapers back in the exact place you want them and all like that. It's a control thing. So hand the children over to him. And he was willing to accept the children. I'd like to say, you were never one of these people that wasn't willing to help out with the kids. I just think I didn't give you opportunities. So I hand the children to him. I bail a couple of times, right? I bail a couple of times. I picked up some consulting and technology consulting. I bail a couple of times so that we get enough water out of the boat so that we can get to shore. And when you think about it that way, that you're in the canoe together, and then you got to get rid of the bullhorn. That's got to go over the side.
You haven't gotten rid of it yet, Lynn. No, it's just a microphone.
It comes out every now and again.
Every now and then he doesn't hear me and I have to yell. But yeah, so we left there and those were the changes that we made immediately. And I really think between the story of us and that's why we're here today.
Nice. So did you go back to therapy or was that the end of your?
No, that was it. It was a
so you've never been.
Why would we go?
ended in a draw, unfortunately.
It ended in a draw.
Have you never been back to marriage therapy?
No.
That's amazing. So I have a very different therapy story. So I want to say, first of all, that my ex-husband and I, keep in mind, he was a sociologist studying marriage and family. And I think he did his dissertation on divorce. So that should have been but anyway, we both come from divorce and you both are from, married families, and the statistics are stacked against you. If you have divorced parents, you're more likely to get divorced. And so I will give kudos to us that he actually had, I think I shared with you in another episode that his father had been diagnosed with cancer early on in our relationship. And at this point has died. And we are engaged and we decided to go to therapy because we want to not be that statistic. And I don't really remember much coming out of it, but we basically got the therapist's blessing. And I remember when we sat down with the rabbi to get married, was really impressed that we had taken the initiative to get therapy. And I will say that we were really good. We were both open to therapy, so it wasn't like either of us, but we didn't have healthy role models on how to solve a conflict. So we had never gone through, what happens when you fight in a marriage. I don't know. Did you guys have parents that fought in front of you?
Oh, my parents fought in front of us. Woo! My
So you
parents
got
My mom
to
and
see
dad did one time, yeah.
just
Couple times, maybe.
once.
Well,
So
I'd say
you
a
didn't.
couple times that I saw.
Well, your mom moved out for
Mom
a little
moved
while.
out for a while.
So yeah, they lost a child. They had to deal with a
Yeah.
lot more than we did.
Yeah, that's a lot. So do you feel like you had an example of how to make it right? And
Well, I will say, what other couples have told us, some other friends of ours that a couple of them ended up in divorce. They said what's interesting about us is we do fight.
mhm.
We
Oh
do
yeah, I
fight
know.
because
I've witnessed.
I think people that don't actively fight or think that fighting is bad, um, they repress those conflicts and then it just kind of blows up
Yeah.
like a teapot.
The
So
resentment.
I'm kind of like a teapot. If you let me get it off my chest, then I can move on to the next
Right.
thing.
The
But if you
resentment is
don't,
yeah.
building it up and then building up that inventory and
One of
yeah.
the therapists that we went to, and this makes me think of you guys, told me that a couple who laughs together, who really like that's a major tool in your tool belt, and I definitely think that of you guys. We had that too, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough. But I have one session I specifically remember with my ex-husband. So we had tried a bunch of different therapists. We moved to California, and by the way, we both worked during our marriage. And one of the reasons that I thought California was going to be a good situation for us was that he was going to be the primary working parent. I was going to be stay-at-home mom, which I had really always wanted. And but then so we tried a bunch of different therapists. We moved to California. Nothing is working. And then I went to a therapist who also had 3 daughters and was a male. And I'm like, perfect. Now this is a therapist that's going to, be someone that my ex is open to. But I remember this one session. I had had a speeding ticket and a car accident, like all within the same. And it was like shortly after we had moved to California.
Wow, I don't remember that.
And no, because I'm here in California now. But I remember we go into the guy's office and I'm explaining what has happened. And Adam, anyway, he's so angry at me. And the therapist looks at him, he goes, "It looks like you wear corrective lenses." He says, "And I don't think you're at your ideal body weight." He goes, "So where are you perfect?" And of course, we did not go back to him. I
Wow.
was like, whoa, ding, ding, ding.
Wow.
So, but I will also share that I have gone to therapy one time with my current boyfriend. And it was before moving in together. And I had shared in a previous episode that he did not let me spend the night at his house with his daughter. And, we're more than 2.5 years into a relationship at this point. And I'm like, that's weird. At this point, I should be able to spend the night. And in having the therapist hear what I had to say and validate what I said, he actually listened. And shortly thereafter, I got to spend the night. But it's nice to have a professional person who's heard it all, who is not biased, who doesn't take sides, and who's just here to, there to listen. I find it to be so helpful.
Well, what's interesting, I think, with any sort of, even if you have like some family conflicts, is that when you're in it, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? You can't see the patterns. But if somebody's listening who can look at it from above because they're not emotionally in it.
Yeah, it's right.
So they're not blinded by all those emotions and they can look at it from above and they can clearly see. And, the way that she clearly saw that it was the financial stress, it was the control, it was the yelling at him to try to control a situation that he was trying his best to do what I was asking him to do, and so the dynamics just needed to shift, and she was able to provide us that shift. Another takeaway that she said was all about proper ways of arguing and concluding an argument. So she said, I think there was another analogy that she was like, after you clean your house, do you ever go out to the trash and go and get the trash and dump it back in your house again? And it's like, no, you don't. So why are you building up this weaponry? And so they told us that we weren't allowed to talk about anything that occurred from remember, she gave us a date. She said, from this day forward, anything that happened previous to year 2000, you guys are not allowed to talk about anymore. You're not allowed to bring out your weaponry. Like remember back in 2000 when you did this, boom, here's my knife. Remember back in 2001 where you did this. You're not allowed. You have to keep moving forward. And the analogy was, you sweep out your house, you get that dirt out of the house, you keep that dirt out of the house. That dirt is not allowed to be brought back up again. Early in our relationship, sometimes, he knew exactly, he's a good fighter. He's a good fighter because
I'm not a good fighter.
You are a good fighter because you knew exactly where to strike me. And so he would bring up the store loan. And I remember that would hurt me a lot. And when I put that last payment on the store loan, I was like, great, he can never hold that store loan over me ever again. But that was what the counselor said, is he can't hold it over you ever again because you're not allowed to talk about the store loan because it's back in 2000. And you can't bring that with you in your marriage forward.
That's great. I did this is good. I did premarital therapy, marital therapy, and then we did postmarital therapy. I don't think I ever shared this story with you. So this is the scene. My older two kids are about to leave for Europe, and I go over to Adam's place to bring them some snacks and some stuff for the airplane, and I'm sitting there. And so we have separated in February, and this is summer, so it's a couple months in. I am not dating. You're really just trying to get my bearings. I'm starting a business. I'm reeling from this. And he gets a text message that goes on the iPad, and my daughter picks it up and reads it. And I am like, you want to talk amygdala brain? I didn't even understand amygdala brain, by the way, at that point.
That?
What's your amygdala brain? It's your reptilian brain. It's your fight, flight, or freeze.
Okay. I've never heard it called that. I heard it called reptilian brain.
And I want to share how that relates to therapy. So I am now, it's in my face that he is texting his girlfriend. And I start to yell. And then he's like, you need to get out, because I'm in front of my kids. I am losing it. Because to be honest with you, when we separated, in my mind, which I will give you another piece of advice. And this is what our therapist said. If there's any chance that you want to keep your marriage together, he said, do not separate. Do not separate.
Yeah.
Because, think about all the new flavors and all the new, you've been eating chocolate, which chocolate was wonderful. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. There's fish food, and there's Jerry Garcia or Cherry, you know what I mean? There's flavors. And so it's hard to go back and like chocolate again once right? So that's one piece of advice, is if you do want to save your marriage, I do not recommend separating. So anyway, I am losing it because I think we've separated because I just can't handle anymore. The fighting is bad. And I want him to go out there and figure out that I am not the root of all evil. And, it's really his problem and not mine. And so then I go into the street where he follows me. So the neighbors can hear, the kids can hear, and I am screaming. And at this point, he's like, I think we need to go to therapy.
Wow. So
I have to say this. We found a therapist that we started actually going on date nights. I don't know. Well, what? If you ask him, they were not date nights. Okay. My mind, they were date nights. They were an opportunity for us to connect, be away from everybody. And, and again, I think we're going to save the marriage. This is what I'm thinking, because we were never going to be the people that got divorced. That was our parents. We weren't going to do that. And, I thought we were both committed to that outcome. In his mind, he just didn't want to have to deal with me like that. And so the one thing that she told me that was that was so good and so helpful, and I think anybody who is having an issue, a conflict, should take this advice. She says you got to go into a timeout. She said you cannot be fighting in your amygdala brain, because again, we do 3 different things. We can either fight, we can flee, or we freeze. We just do nothing. And I'm a fighter. Don't So she said you got to wait until that part of you, that I can't remember the whatever. I can't think of it. But when that part of your brain is firing, you're not making sound decisions. So she says you give yourself a timeout and you agree that you're going to take 30 minutes away from the conflict, and then you're going to go away from each other. And then she said, but neither of you can drive or leave the house.
Oh,
Yeah. And she said, and then after 30 minutes, you come together or you communicate and say, okay, am I prepared to finish this conversation? Or do we need to postpone? And she said, if you need to postpone, you have to come to we are going to meet back up at this time and this, not more than 24 hours.
Oh, that's a great strategy.
It's really, really good. And we both actually agreed after meeting with this therapist that had we gone to her first, it's possible we could have saved our marriage.
Wow.
But at the point that we were at, she wanted both of us to commit to not dating other people. And I was prepared to make that commitment because I wasn't dating and he was, experiencing all the flavors. And so, I'll tell you how it all ends up playing out in the end. But so I will say that a good therapist really, if you have 2 people who are committed to making it work, can, I think, save a marriage or a relationship.
Yeah. We didn't really vet our therapist. It was really about a price point.
Mm-hmm.
$25
It's hard these days to vet. I have to say, therapy right now it's hard to find a therapist. I actually found a therapist when I was going through some stuff recently, some transitions in my family, where things were at in my relationship, and my insurance. There's therapists are in such demand that the good ones are saying, I'm not going to take insurance, and it can be really expensive. And I think if it's a matter of our marriage isn't going to survive if we don't get therapy, then I think you pay for what you need to, because it's a lot cheaper than a divorce. But it is hard to find a good therapist for a decent price.
I think the other avenue of therapists is using Jami as your moderator, or your family, or finding good role if your family is like my dad. I think if my dad would have let me spend the night, and then my mom would have been there as well, they might have armed me with something. But I think what my dad did was good for that particular time, because I went back home, we worked it out. I think we had great makeup sex that worked out. So, but I remember when you first told me, you were thinking of getting separated, and Bruce and I contemplated flying out to California to try to do like a marriage intervention. So, having people around you that can kind of support you, because it's just not easy. Now, the other thing I will tell you that Bruce and I did, because we didn't want to yell in front of the children, I
cannot imagine the 2 of you not yelling in front of your kids.
Well, so
when they were young, we did not.
When they were young,
wow.
We did not. When they were young, we didn't want, they didn't really have context. Like now we could probably do it. Now we could do it. And now we've done it. And I think we had a fight in Italy on our trip that was fine. So
there was one in New York in particular.
There was one in New York that we had a major fight.
They need to see you guys get through conflict. Like when my kids saw me get through a heartbreak, that they saw that I picked myself up and that I moved on, because I think it's important for kids to see our emotions.
But I think it
was good for our son, because he's been dating a girl for quite a while now, and he's able to get through the conflict with his girlfriend. Like if there's a problem, they can work it out.
Yeah, we've seen them fight.
We've seen them fight, and they can work through it. And that's part of being in a relationship, because you got to work through it. You just can't bail.
But where I was going to go with, where I was going to go, where I think you forgot about, was when our kids were really younger, when they were younger, and we would be at the dining room table, and there would be a fight about to break out between us. and they were obviously understanding words at this point. And some of our words were very mean. We can be very mean to each other. So I got a piece of paper out and I wrote on the piece of paper, like, you are really pissing me off right now. And then I took the pencil and I passed the paper over to him, and he's like, I don't like you right now either. And he passed the paper back to me. And this is happening at dinner, and our kids don't even know what's going on. And then I drew a stick figure of like him dying. And then he drew a stick figure of like me. And then I was like, we need to talk about this. And he was like, da 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 da. And we worked it out on paper. And that's another strategy. When you are starting to talk over each other in a fight, you should get out a piece of paper, and then you write, they write, you exchange papers, you write, they write. So at least you're reading words and listening, and you're not over talking. But it really spared our kids from the F-bombs and, the name calling, because we name called each other on a piece of paper. And then we even drew like, his drawings were way better than mine, and his drawings were like I wish I could find them, because I would post them, because his drawings were like I was in a hangman. I don't know what you put me on.
Have you ever heard that expression, that if you ever get into a fight, you should fight naked? You guys ever heard that?
Oh, I did that one time. I took off my top. He was coming at me really aggressively, and I took off my top. And I was like, what were you saying? I don't know what you were saying. And then I started taking off my bottom, and I started taking off the bottoms.
I don't remember what we fought about.
One time, remember when you said,
I know what we did afterwards.
I know. How about that time when you said, I am so tired of sex being on your time frame. So next time you want to have sex, I'm going to refuse you. So I took off all my clothes and just kept strutting around the house naked. And I was like, well, whenever you're ready, I'm here. Like, whenever you're ready.
So, okay.
Like,
I've got another question. Did
nice.
you ever go to bed angry? They always say you're not supposed to go to bed angry.
Oh, yeah. It's the foot touching. The foot touching. So he's a big one on this. He does not like to go to bed angry, and he does not like to go to bed without like a kiss or a foot touch. And man, he will just
I become a baby.
Oh, he will try to hold me, and I'm like, stop touching me. And he will be like, I'm not going to let go until you tell me it's okay. And oh man, it really makes me angry, because he needs like that affirmation.
I need the reassurance. Yeah.
So Bruce, let me ask you this question, because, I'm sure there are probably less and less, but a lot of people out there that are just like, I'm not doing therapy. I don't want to talk about my feelings. This is bullshit. What would you say?
It can't hurt. I mean, what's the worst that can happen is you get your feelings out. Somebody else gets to hear them. You get to share, and it's the way I look at it, it became a competition because there was a referee.
Right. But let me ask you a question. Would you guys go back if you had another problem, or if either one of you had a
I think we would, but I think we're so far past that now. Like I'll wake up grumpy. She'll wake up grumpy. We'll have some bad days here and there, but for the most part, I don't know. It seems like our life's been getting better with age.
Yeah, I think sometimes though the kids still divide us.
Yes.
Because sometimes I want to stick to our original plan, and he's more the softy that says, you're being kind of, the situation has changed and you need to adjust. And I'm kind of like, well, you're being too soft. Our kids are going to be on our payroll in their 50s if we don't lay some foundation of them being independent. We need to let them fail. And he's like, well, let's have them fail softly. So we do have those kind of conversations. And I think it's really the only thing we argue about really is the kids, because it's just
it's because it's the only
kids.
They drive us nuts.
They do drive us nuts.
I mean, it's always something, right? When you have children.
Yeah.
And of all. So at the end of the day, you got to find a way. You got to find a way, and they try to pitch you against each other. So they good cop, bad cop us, and then there's a point where I draw the line, and once I draw that line, Lynn knows. Let's go. I can whatever. Once I hit that mark, Lynn knows Dad's in gear. let's go.
Oh yeah.
And she could pull off anything with the kids in. She goes, just tell them to do this, Bruce. And I'm like, yes, I'm ready to go. Let's kill them.
I like
You're going to
that.
mow the grass. You're going to get a freaking job. You're going to do this.
So-
And once I cross that line, she knows where that line is. And that, that's a whole, but I think it's, being married for 25 years, working problems out the way we've worked our problems out with, family and friends, that listen to us complain about each other every now and again.
Oh yeah. We were voted, when we first dated, Alexa said to me, oh, Lynn, he's going to last 2 weeks because he's too nice. And Lynn likes a challenge. And I was done with the challenges when I met him. I was looking for a partner, and I don't want to dominate anybody. I want somebody that's going to push back on me and make me grow. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason we're still together is because we keep growing, and we're looking forward to the next chapter where, we don't have to deal with kids, because to me, it was always about us before the kids. Mm-hmm. And so the kids are not allowed to divide us.
Right. Good. So let's rein it in and bring it to the end of this episode. So I think we're in agreement that if there is a decision to make about going to therapy, there's no decision. Go to therapy.
Do it.
Absolutely. Go to therapy. And therapy doesn't have to be expensive. Someone. Maybe you just have somebody who just is impartial, and, they can see the forest for the trees maybe, and just give you some feedback. Yeah. I'd also say, lay down your weapons. Take your bag of grudges and send them off to Goodwill. There's no purpose for bringing back dirty laundry. It's only hurtful, and winning doesn't mean you win, right? You lose.
Right. Absolutely. There is a saying that you can be right or you can be happy.
Right.
And then I would also just throw in, don't fight in your amygdala brain. Yeah.
Oh, that's also such a good one. And I would get the movie, The Story of Us.
It wouldn't hurt.
It wouldn't hurt. Either have The Story of Us or some other sort of tradition that you have that you agree to sort of watch something, watch somebody else argue maybe, and maybe you see yourselves in that. And then The Notebook is really effective if you're in front of children and, you maybe use words you shouldn't use in front of children, or if you're particularly mean. It does get interesting. I remember one of his stick figures was like us having sex, and then all of a sudden we started laughing, and then he wrote love you and I wrote love you, and the kids didn't know that we had gone through this range of emotions.
I love it.
At dinner. So you guys
need to do a marriage boot camp. I'm serious, but we need to end the episode because we're rambling. We've given them the good meat, but I think
we've given them all the good stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, it was great to chat with you guys. Your love is really inspiring. You guys really are the fun couple. And
I'm enjoying watching you and Brian too. I'm watching the journey with you and Brian all over again in the moving in stage, and then raising a blended family. So it's just all very interesting to me. So if someone is out there and you're in this mindset right now, or you're having issues, or maybe you're on the opposite side and you want to share some other tips and tricks, we will have a website where you can submit those things. And then again, if you give us permission and you have maybe a marriage journal or something like that you want to share, we're happy to share that with our listeners, and give us some additional marriage ideas and decisions that you make. Thank you so much for listening. No regrets, right? No do-overs.
Regrets, no do-overs.